Hello, this is Mark Grier. For the next hour, I'll be reading from the July 2nd issue of the New York Times, an Niagara Frontier radio reading service. Okay, first article. Rash of drone incursions shows European vulnerability, experts say. A new study, backed up by analysts and political leaders, says frequent drone flights over NATO military assets mark a Russian campaign to probe defenses and gather information. A drone soars towards a French nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. 20 drones maneuver over the Danish port of Courage, used for military deployments. The Dutch military tries to bring down drones over Volkel Air Base in the Netherlands. Far from the battlefields of Ukraine, drones are forcing European countries to change their thinking about national defense. Despite repeated provocations, NATO members appear ill-prepared for the new drone era, as Russia probes their defenses, seemingly it will. From August 2024 to February 2026, there were 144 incidents of suspicious drones over a dozen European countries, according to a news report released Thursday by the London-based International Institute of Strategic Studies. They included the sighting off the coast of Sweden, where a drone near the French carrier was jammed by Swedish forces in February, as well as the ones over Denmark and the Netherlands last year. These did not involve store-bought quadcopters operated by hobbyists or malfunctioning Ukrainian drones straying into NATO aerospace, but often complex reconnaissance aircraft flying over military bases and critical infrastructure. The report's authors wrote that they assess it as highly likely that Moscow carried out a drone campaign in the European skies employing Russian-linked vessels in the North Sea and Baltic Sea to launch their aerial drones. We see it as a coordinated approach, said Charlie Edwards, one of the reporter's lead authors. He told reporters at a briefing list this week. We believe the campaign operated with substantial impunity and represents kind of a series of tactical successes for the Kremlin, but a strategic failure of Allied defense. Individual European countries have named the threat. We suspect that Russia is behind most of these drone flights, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said in October, after a significant increase in drone sightings. Part of the reason that the response in Europe has been muted, the report found, was because each country focused on the national response rather than connecting the dots across Europe. But the full picture comes into focus by looking at it continent-wide. Challenges are many. Militaries often lack the legal authority to act in peacetime by shooting down drones, even if they have the authority. The risk of civilian injuries, even for fatalities from falling debris, might not be acceptable for a country at peace like Germany or France, the way it is in Ukraine. Without downed drones and components to study, proving a connection to Russia has been difficult. Some skeptics in Western Europe will say that the overflights are little more than out-of-control quadcopters piloted by amateurs. It does not make any sense to believe that these are hobbyist systems, said Ulrike Franke, senior fellow at the European Council of Foreign Relations. She added that sophisticated drones are capable of far more than visual surveillance. Hovering over a base where Ukrainian soldiers are training, for instance, the drones could try to pull cellular numbers that could be used for targeting when the troops return to the front. An episode at Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana this past March demonstrated the vulnerability in the United States as well. According to a statement by the Air Force Global Strike Command, the airbase experienced several unauthorized drone incursions that varied in duration and number of drones. The statement added, the incident remains under an active federal investigation. Ukraine's audacious sneak attack last summer deep in Russian territory, known as Operation Spider's Web, demonstrated the risk that drones can pose far behind enemy lines. A similar attack on NATO territory could totally happen, and we aren't prepared, Ms. Franke said. The drone flights in Western Europe are a separate problem from the dangerous, possibly accidental incursions by Russian and Ukrainian attack drones, leading to an apartment building being hit in Romania. The European Union has been working on a plan for a drone wall that would shore up its eastern flank, protecting against Russian drones in the Baltic states, Poland, Romania, and elsewhere. It would include radar, acoustic sensors, and electronic jamming systems. But so far, the idea has gained limited traction. Okay, moving on, next article. GOP Senate candidates quietly move to gain an extra cash edge. Most of the party's top candidates are starting their own super PACs instead of relying on a powerful group run by Washington leaders. The move allows them to seize control of their financial destinies. For the last decade, Republican nominees for Senate have been given stern warnings about seeking too much of their own money. When these candidates explored organizing their own super PACs, which would allow them to accept checks with unlimited zeros, they were usually dissuaded from doing so by allies of a powerful Republican super PAC tied to party leaders in Washington. That group, the Senate Leadership Fund, functionally oversaw general election spending for Republican senator nominees. But a quiet change has unfolded in the world of big money in the 2026 midterm elections. For the first time, most Republican nominees in battleground states are drawing support from their own well-funded super PACs. The little-noticed shift allows them to raise more money, adding to the party's advantage in super PAC cash over Democrats. That edge could prove important in the midterms. Even if the Supreme Court's major recent campaign finance decision shakes up how much candidates rely on super PACs. The move could also make Republican candidates less reliant on the Senate Leadership Fund. There is often drama each fall when the group makes difficult decisions about which states to prioritize or abandon. Not all, but many campaigns are going to need their own super PACs, said Mark Harris, a top advisor on David McCormick's Senate campaign in Pennsylvania in 2024. A former hedge fund executive, Mr. McCormick won the help from his own well-funded super PAC. In a big Senate race, Mr. Harris added, you need everything you can get. In Maine, Iowa, Alaska, Ohio, North Carolina, and Michigan, we have 6 of the top Senate races this year. The Republican nominees, our presumptive nominees, have big spending super PACs. Advertising records show. The change also reflects turnover at SLF under the 11-year reign of Stephen Law, a former chief of staff to Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky. The Maine Senate Republican super PAC covered most of a nominee's general election spending, but that norm has loosened under Alex Lacham, a former aide of President Trump, who succeeded Mr. Law after the 2024 election. Mr. Lacham said that he was generally okay with candidates having their own super PACs. It's not clear that he could stop them anyway in the Trump-led party where the president has his own enormous super PAC. Our mission is to beat Democrats, and an efficient, competent efforts that aid in this goal are welcome, he said. But he added, everyone wants a super PAC until it's time to raise the money. Mr. Law's logic has been to not only oversee the chessboard, but also protect the interests of major Republican donors who often needed SLF's expertise on where to spend money. The main Democratic Senate super PAC, called Senate Majority PAC, and aligned with Senator Chuck Schumer of New York, the minority leader, generally still operates this way. Democratic nominees in top races this year do not have their own well-funded super PACs. Mr. Law said in an interview that at the outset, SLF had really followed the Chuck Schumer model, frankly, which was to strongly discourage people from forming candidate-specific super PACs, and equally discourage donors from dissipating resources. But his position, he added, had evolved away from a place of active resistance. By the 2024 election cycle, a few Republicans with ties to big donors did things differently. In Pennsylvania, Mr. McCormick's allies ran a $60 million group. That successful strategy left some other Republicans jealous. I can't tell you how many candidates have come to us and said, "Hey, can you put together the David McCormick super PAC?" said Brooks Kovchar, who ran the McCormick Group in 2024. His response is a question back. Are you really good friends with these 8 mega donors in the Republican Party? For candidates, an individual super PAC also creates an insurance policy in case SLF pulls back from their race. In the fall of 2022, the Republican nominee for Senate in Arizona, Blake Masters, was apoplectic when SLF pulled millions worth of ads for him. He lost narrowly. Mr. Masters said it was a good idea for some candidates to start their own groups. If you're an establishment Republican who promises to do what leadership says, you're probably safe relying on SLF, he said. But if you're bringing new ideas and any sense of independence to the table, then SLF will not only not help you, but they'll actively root against you. Most of the Republican super PACs have friendly relations with SLF, but in Michigan, SLF and its donors have a frosty relationship with a super PAC supporting Mike Rogers, the presumptive Republican nominee, according to 3 people with knowledge of the matter who spoke on the condition of remaining anonymous. In statements, the 2 organizations praised their relationship. In Maine, the super PAC for Senator Susan Collins, Pine Tree Results, coordinates with SLF on the timing of ads and shares polling. Ms. Collins' super PAC has booked close to as much money on ads as SLF has. The same is true for super PACs in Iowa and Alaska. Okay, next article. How to stay safe in a heat dome. Extreme temperatures over the 4th of July weekend will put a strain on emergency rooms. Parts of the United States, including the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, are expected to reach record-breaking temperatures as a dangerous heat dome settles in for the holiday weekend. Emergency room doctors are bracing for a double whammy. The typical surge of patients they see on the 4th of July, many with fireworks-related injuries, and a second influx of people suffering from extreme heat. To stay safe in a heat wave, the key is prevention, said Dr. Bradley Urin, clinical associate professor of emergency medicine at Michigan Medicine. Dr. Uren and other ER doctors offered tips for how to protect yourself and others in the sweltering weather. Drink more water than you think you need. Once you feel thirsty, you're already behind, said Dr. Reed Caldwell, Chief of Services for the Ronald Perelman Center for Emergency Services at NYU Langone's Tisch Hospital. Keep drinking fluids throughout the day, even if you think you've had plenty. One caveat, people with heart failure can end up drinking too much water, potentially leading to fluid in their lungs, so they should follow the doctor's advice. Most people don't need electrolytes or specialty beverages. Plain water is just fine, Dr. Uren said. An important sign that you are not getting enough fluids is dark yellow urine. Certain foods, including fresh fruits and vegetables, can also help boost your hydration levels. Melons, strawberries, oranges, grapes, cucumbers, and celery have especially high water content. As much as possible, avoid alcohol, since it is dehydrating. Plan your day around heat. If you can, avoid being outside from late morning until the late afternoon, which tends to be a hot stretch of the day. Wear light-colored natural fabrics like cotton and linen, and avoid dark colors and synthetic fabrics, Dr. Caldwell said. Spend as much time as possible inside an air-conditioned space. Many cities and towns are making local cooling centers available during the heat wave. The National Center for Healthy Housing has a directory of these centers. Public spaces like libraries and malls are also options. If you do not have air conditioning in your home, use a blanket or sheet on the windows to block out the sun during the day. At night, keep windows open and run fans to circulate the air. You can also spritz your skin with cool or room temperature water and press a cool cloth on your forehead. Recognize the warning signs of extreme heat. Heat illness is a spectrum, said Dr. Christopher Bazzoli, an emergency room medicine doctor at Cleveland Clinic. Mild, early symptoms can progress into full-blown heat stroke. One of the earliest signs of exposure to extreme heat is heat edema, or swelling in the ankles, hands, and feet, said Dr. Bazzoli. If you notice that type of swelling, head to the coolest place possible. Ideally, somewhere air-conditioned. If you have to stay outside, find some shade. Elevating your feet can also help contain the swelling. Symptoms of heat exhaustion, a moderate form of illness caused by heat, can include nausea, faintness or dizziness, muscle cramps, and a racing heart rate. If you are experiencing any of these symptoms, get yourself to a cool place and rest and hydrate. Taking a cold shower or misting yourself with cold water can help lower your body temperature. You can also place cold, wet towels over your body. A more severe form of heat illness is heat stroke, which can be fatal. People suffering from heat stroke can develop a high body temperature at or above 103 degrees, and hot and red skin that's either dry or damp. Symptoms also include headache, dizziness, nausea, and a rapid heartbeat. People with heat stroke often act confused and appear uncoordinated, stumbling, and delirious. This is frequently coupled with rapid, shallow breathing. If someone is exhibiting these symptoms, call 911 immediately and try to remove the person into a cooler area or shade. Closely monitor people who are especially vulnerable. Certain groups are particularly at risk for developing heat-related illnesses, including older people, infants, and pregnant women. Those with conditions like heart disease, lung and kidney issues, and diabetes are also more susceptible. Note that some medications can raise the risk of dehydration and heat-related illness. They include certain blood pressure drugs, allergy medications, thyroid hormone replacement drugs, and antipsychotics and antidepressants. Excuse me. Protect your pets also. Keep your pets inside as much as you can, ideally in air conditioning or, failing that, at least near a fan. If your pets must stay outside, ensure they have plenty of shade and fresh water, and do not leave them unattended for more than a few minutes. Watch out for warning signs that your pet is overheated, including excessive panting, atypical lethargy, vomiting, or extreme diarrhea. If your pet exhibits these symptoms, seek medical care for them as soon as possible. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the New York Times on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Okay, and now another article concerning the extreme heat. It's too hot to cook, but food truck workers have no choice. The heat wave in New York this week is even hotter for those working, often without air conditioning, in the carts that line city blocks. A heat wave settled over New York City on Wednesday afternoon, sending temperatures soaring into the mid-90s in Midtown Manhattan. For Frank Suganta, 49, who works in the Chopsteak food truck by Bryant Park, that meant his work environment. A metal-sided cart on wheels, parked beneath the blazing sun, felt hotter than 100 degrees inside. A small fan, ice water, and cold rags were all he had to battle the sweltering weather. The grill and the stove spew heat inside, Mr. Sukanta said, as his partner flipped steaks. We've been in this business so many years, we get used to it. Mayor Zohran Mamdani, who last month signed an executive order requiring new safeguards to protect workers from extreme heat, advised New Yorkers this week to stay inside in air conditioning. But for the many food truck workers that serve meals around the city, that relief is usually non-existent. We have a lot of windows but no air conditioning, said Cindy Q, 40, who works in the teriyaki food truck near Bryant Park. She noted that she was lucky the truck had big windows that let in a fair amount of breeze. Bharat Jaram Venkat, the director of the Heat Lab at the University of California in Los Angeles, said that his team studied ambient temperatures in food trucks in that city and found that the metal structures take on outside heat throughout the day while also producing heat in small spaces. Many trucks did not have air conditioning, he said, and if they did, it was sometimes ineffective at cooling down the space. On a temperate day in Los Angeles that was around 60 degrees, he said his team found that workers inside food trucks could be experiencing 100 degrees of heat. Their bodies are also producing heat, while the ovens and stoves are producing heat, while the actual architecture of the food truck has absorbed all the heat during the day, he said. That combination can be quite dangerous. Ensuring the safety of food vendors during extreme heat is a top priority for the Street Vendor Project at the Urban Justice Center, said Andrew Concha Chang, who leads the advocacy group's environmental justice program. The group distributes flyers in many of the languages commonly spoken by the city's food vendors that provide guidance on preventing heat exhaustion and stroke, he said. Its website also lists city resources such as the location of cooling centers. Mr. Concha Chang said the group also worked on helping vendors transition to electric alternatives to gas powered generators, which create additional heat and can often break in high temperatures. Carts and trucks are generally not standardized, he noted, so there is no one size fits all solution to heat. Working inside the El Asado Mexicano food truck on Wednesday afternoon, Axel Prado, 21, tried to keep cool by drinking water and wiping down with cold rags. The upside of the heat, he said, was that his truck was quite busy during the lunch hour. We would want to cook. Who would want to cook? It's really hot, he said. I don't think I would want to cook. That was the case for Ray Lynch, 36, who lives in Brooklyn but works in an office near Bryant Park. He was waiting for a late breakfast outside of a La Baguette cafe truck on Wednesday. I have a pretty small apartment, so if I can cook before the sun comes up, I might, he said, but otherwise I have a tendency to eat out really quick. But Louis Chaguro, 40, said that business was actually slower for the Thai Miss Delicious food truck on Wednesday, despite a sizable line. They are either ordering for delivery for their offices or they don't come to work, he said of his customers. He also said he guessed that it was about 80 degrees inside the truck, which was parked in the shade. He said if the temperatures reached over 100 degrees, he would consider not working. Mr. Sukanta at Chop Steak was also noticing that business was slower on Wednesday, he said. Some people stopped by for cold drinks only and did not order food at all. He said he would probably not open on Friday when temperatures are set to reach over 100 degrees because most people would be out of the city for the July 4th holiday weekend, not because of the heat. Cold, hot, whatever, he said, unfazed. Dr. Venkat said that the issues facing food truck workers related to a broader issue of thermal inequity, the heat burden imposed on others to get consumers what they want and need. When we go up to a food truck and order a burrito or a sandwich, he said, we don't think about what it's like on the inside. Okay, move on to next article. The U.S. resumes dollar transfers to Iraq after months-long suspension. The Trump administration has halted the shipments to Iraq as part of its efforts to pressure the Baghdad government to distance itself from Iran. The United States has resumed some air shipments of U.S. dollars to Iraq, several months after it suspended them in a bid to pressure the government to distance itself from Iran, according to two aides to Iraq's prime leader. The Trump administration stopped the flow of dollars to Iraq's cash-based economy on April, withholding the country's own money earning from oil sales. It was an extraordinary measure in light of the long-standing alliance between the two countries. At the time, Iraqi officials said Washington had also suspended cooperation with and funding for Iraq's security services. These measures remain in place, according to another Iraqi official who spoke on the condition of remaining anonymous. The punitive measures were taken at a moment when Iraq was in the process of selecting a new prime minister and the United States was trying to block candidates viewed as sympathetic to Iran. Washington was also demanding that Iraq's government rein in an array of Iran-linked militias that operate largely outside of the government control and have periodically attacked U.S. targets in the country. The dollar shipments to Iraq have resumed, said Haider al-Adabi, a spokesman for Iraq's new Prime Minister Ali Zaldi, adding that the problem has been resolved. Madar Mohammed Salih, a financial advisor to the Prime Minister, confirmed resumption of the transfer. The U.S. State Department referred a request for comment to the Treasury Department, which did not immediately respond. A few years ago, new international banking rules, worked out in an agreement between the United States and Iraq, required greater transparency surrounding the wire transfer of dollars held as foreign currency reserves for Iraq in an account at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. The intent was to stem the illicit flow of dollars to criminal actors and money launderers, and to those helping militant groups in neighboring countries, including Iran. The Iraqi central bank facilitates wire transfer daily from its account at the New York Fed on behalf of Iraqi businesses and individuals to pay for goods from outside Iraq. The transfers are critical because few businesses have international bank accounts. One of the motivations behind the U.S. suspension in April was to stem the smuggling of dollars by Iran-backed militias, an official from Iraq's semi-autonomous Kurdistan region said at the time. Mr. al-Zadi, the Prime Minister, is a political newcomer who took power in late April, soon after the U.S.'s suspension of the dollar shipments. The United States did not oppose his appointment, and he quickly took steps to try to clamp down on Iran-linked militias in his country. One of his first actions was to order all of the country's militias to come under direct state authority. Iraq has long been caught in a tug-of-war between its two biggest allies, the United States and Iran, and at times the country has turned into a proxy battlefield for the two foes. Previous attempts to bring the militias under tighter government control have failed, and some of the most powerful Iran-linked militias in Iraq have already rejected the Prime Minister's latest attempts to take control over them. Chief among them is Kataib Hezbollah, a group that has attacked U.S. targets in Iraq in recent months and has claimed responsibility for high-profile kidnappings, including that of the U.S. journalist in Baghdad this year. The resumption of dollar shipments also comes as Mr. al-Zadi began an anti-corruption campaign, arresting dozens of current and former officials, including members of parliament, on corruption charges, according to the state-run Iraqi news agency. On Sunday, the authorities arrested 47 people, according to the report, and operations were ongoing to pursue others suspected of corruption. Okay, moving on. Next article. This is from the opinion section. An article by Juliana Glover. You're going to get hacked. The only solution is to abandon your shame. I run a public relations company, and there is one type of crisis no amount of planning can allay. It might start like this. One of my clients, imagine the founder of an AI startup, receives notice that her iCloud account is about to be deleted because the payment method is no longer valid. Her assistant, who has access to her devices, calls her so he can update the payment method and asks for her two-factor authentication code. The founder reads off the code. Moments later, she's locked out of her iCloud. Her text messages, photos, her videos, voice memos, and notes to self are all stolen. The founder calls me in a panic. How could this happen? The founder's password could have been compromised and listed on the dark web with the help of artificial intelligence. The hackers can send the fake non-payment notice, clone her assistant's voice using videos posted on Instagram and either the two-factor authentication code to break into her iCloud account. Then they could demand a Bitcoin ransom to return the trove of personal musings, sexts, and photos, perhaps some sans clothes. This scenario is not as far-fetched as it sounds. Apple has some of the strongest security measures in tech and is constantly innovating new defenses, but in recent months it has repeatedly warned its customers of sophisticated scams. Gmail break-ins are proliferating. Hackers are subjecting even everyday people to embarrassing leaks. Once they get into your iCloud account, they could have access to your entire digital history dating back to your first iPhone. And thanks to AI, hackers of all stripes, malign state actors, cyber criminals, and genius kids out for giggles may soon have more advanced tools to suss out the login credentials for our Gmail, iCloud, and Microsoft Office accounts. Government organizations are certain approved companies have access to advanced AI systems that find weaknesses in even the most well-vetted software programs. Anthropic's Claude Mythos and OpenAI's Chat GPT 5.5 Cyber are as or nearly as skilled as elite human hackers. The Atlantic reported. Excuse me. The head of the National Security Agency reportedly said Mythos found vulnerabilities in all of the agency's classified systems, not in weeks, but in hours. The Chinese AI system, ZA, has matched some of these capabilities. These models are not available to the public, and today, hackers tend to go after financial systems, companies, governments, and critical infrastructure rather than people's personal accounts. State-mandated restrictions limiting access to these models mean that hackers can't use them to crack our password-protected data caches in the short term. But every week, we seem to see a step change in their sophistication. How long will we be able to maintain a firewall around access to technology? Most of us have something to hide. Some of the most recent polling from 2015 found that 8 of 10 adults in the United States admitted to sexting within the last year, and that was more than a decade ago, before we were all constantly online. More than half of Americans admit to having viewed online porn. There's only one way forward. We have to move past digital shame. We need a collective societal pact that acknowledges we all have embarrassing secret foibles, interests, obsessions, and neuroses that are password protected for now, but may not be forever. We should begin to accept that an embarrassing leak isn't a life-defining event. In 2019, after the National Enquirer obtained some of Jeff Bezos' personal text messages and photos, Mr. Bezos preempted their release by publishing the extortionist's letters online. "If in my position I can't stand up to this kind of extortion," he wrote, "how many people can?" I am not suggesting that we excuse terrible behavior. If hacked material shows illegal, abusive, coercive, or non-consensual acts, people should face legal action and societal reprobation. But fingers flying across keyboards and thumbs twiddling on iPhones are not actions in real life. We can say, type, and search for things that have no implications in real world. Public shaming can play an important societal role when it stigmatizes offensive and harmful behavior, but there's no value in canceling someone for private musings that were never intended to be seen in public. In the Christian tradition, the sins of the mind are meant to be self-reported in the confines of one's communion with God. The same sins, intimately recorded on your personal devices, should not be the grounds for public hanging. We should, however, take steps to protect ourselves from hacking. You can start by not doing anything mortifying on your phone. Good luck with that. You can also edit everything embarrassing out of your iCloud files and Gmail history. Create unique and complex passwords for each website. Turn on multi-factor and biometric authentication, and make sure never to share your authentication code. All excellent rules to live by, but sometimes harder to follow. Ultimately, society may have to stop punishing lawful private behavior. Enough with "say what?" Instead, "say what?" needs to be our response to the salacious, titillating, and terrifying hacks that could come our way. Okay, moving on. Next article. Immigrant arrests surged to 10,000 in 5 days as ICE clamps down. The agency has doubled its daily arrest numbers without the fanfare of last year's large urban operations, sowing fear in immigrant communities. Federal immigration officials have detained more than 10,000 people in the last 5 days, a major surge that has stemmed from a push within Immigration and Customs Enforcement to increase arrest rates. Agency leaders in recent days ordered top ICE officials to focus more of their officers' efforts on picking up immigrants they want to deport, according to the documents obtained by the New York Times, and interviews with federal officials. ICE officers have arrested people at check-ins with immigration authorities, during traffic stops, and on the street. The push has apparently yielded results, with recent arrest numbers roughly doubling from the 1,000 picked up each day earlier this year. ICE officials were told that the White House wanted an increase in arrests, according to 3 officials with knowledge of the conversation. One of the officials said that it was unclear how long the pace could continue, but that ICE officials have been told that 2,000 arrests a day was the new standard for enforcement. The surge has occurred without the fanfare of highly visible operations last year, in which officials announced their intentions ahead of time to target cities, including Chicago and Los Angeles, and send officers pouring into the streets. Markwayne Mullin, the Homeland Security Secretary, pledged to mount a quieter enforcement campaign following the chaos of a month-long operation in Minnesota, where federal officers killed 2 U.S. citizens. The rise in arrests suggests that President Trump is determined to meet his pledge of mass deportations, a goal that is popular among his conservative supporters, but that has fueled a political backlash amid the administration's heavy-handed tactics. The Trump administration has promised more aggressive actions, particularly after the Supreme Court in recent days expanded the president's power to set federal immigration policy, but undercut his efforts to eliminate birthright citizenship for children of illegal immigrants and visitors. Excuse me. Our message is clear. If you come to our country illegally, we will find you, and we will arrest you, and we will deport you, Lauren Biss, a Department of Homeland Security spokeswoman, said in a recent statement. Word of an uptick in arrests has started to trickle out, sowing fear in immigrant communities and among advocates already on edge after the Supreme Court ruled that Mr. Trump could end deportation protections for people from disaster and war-torn countries under the Territory Protection Status Program. In recent days, ICE officers have launched an intense push to ramp up arrests. Arrests topped out on Saturday when authorities detained over 2,400 people, according to documents obtained by the Times. The detention population inside ICE facilities has jumped nearly 4,000 to more than 63,000 in the agency's custody as of Tuesday, according to internal documents. In emails to the ICE personnel, agency leaders applauded the latest numbers. I quote, "I want to personally thank each of you for your extraordinary efforts this past weekend," Marcos Charles, the head of ICE's deportation ring, wrote this week. "Through your dedication, professionalism, and unwavering commitment to our mission, enforcement and removal operations achieved remarkable operational results." End quote. Top ICE officials were told to make sure that as many officers as possible were working 7 days a week, and to put 80% of their officers on arrest operations, according to two officials who spoke on the condition of remaining anonymous. Top supervisors were expected to be working closely on the operations as well. Last year, Stephen Miller, Mr. Trump's deputy chief of staff, set a goal of 3,000 arrests a day for the agency, a figure it was not able to hit. Since then, the agency has hired thousands of new officers and has had its budget increased by billions of dollars for the enforcement surge. Across the country, immigration lawyers and advocates have reported an uptick in enforcement. In South Texas, Sister Letta Ubaja, a Nigerian nun, was arrested on her way to church on Sunday morning, according to Sister Norma Pimentel, her colleague. The woman is a local nurse who also helps at a parish in the region. Ms. Pimentel called local leaders after learning of the arrest, and congressional officials soon got involved and pushed for her release. On Sunday, she was let go from ICE custody, and Ms. Pimentel was there to greet her. Ms. Pimentel said that Ms. Ubaja was distraught upon her release. "It took her a while to be able to talk. She was crying," she said. In southern Florida, attorneys have been on alert. Cindy Blandon, an immigration attorney in Miami, said that one of her clients, a Nicaraguan father of 2 children, had an immigration court hearing set for 2027, but was arrested by ICE on Monday during a routine check-in. And in Utah, Yesbel Lanazar, an immigration attorney, has noticed an uptick as well. She has spoken to several clients, including a man who was driving when he was picked up by the agency for overstaying his visa this weekend. "It sets further fear in the community," she said. "People don't want to leave their houses. They are afraid to drive to do their grocery shopping. They are just terrified with these detentions." One of her clients, Arturo, a 48-year-old Mexican man, was arrested in Salt Lake City on his way to a soccer game on Sunday, according to his wife, Veronica. She said the arrest has shattered their family. "They're getting people, but very carefully," her husband told her from ICE detention, she recalled through an interpreter. She said her 13-year-old son was traumatized by the arrest of his father, who had worked most days of the week building furniture before his arrest, she added. A Department of Homeland Security spokeswoman, said that Arturo had illegally re-entered the United States and would be held in ICE custody as the agency sought to deport him. Veronica said the family had not expected to be caught up in Mr. Trump's deportation sweep. "We were worried, but it wasn't like we were extremely worried. We figured we don't have any criminal record. We pay taxes every year," she said. All right, next article. Does Trump worry about conflicts of interest? I found out that nobody cared. American presidents have generally tried to avoid appearing to profit from the office. President Trump has chosen a different path. President Trump returned to the White House with an epiphany of mixing business and politics during his first term in office. I found out that nobody cared, Mr. Trump told the New York Times in January, revealing a remarkable indifference to potential conflicts of interest. That was months before Mr. Trump's latest financial disclosure revealed on Tuesday that he made about $1.4 billion from his family's cryptocurrency business during his first year back in office, even as the Trump administration has relaxed regulation of crypto companies. By tradition, American presidents have generally tried to avoid appearing to profit from the presidency, often taking actions to separate themselves from the kinds of corporate entanglements that could create conflicts of interest. Mr. Trump has chosen a different path, smashing through the few norms he paid even glancing attention to in his first term, like having his family restrain his international business activity. I got no credit in the first term, he said in January. Now, he and his family have amassed a mammoth windfall, and so far at least, Mr. Trump appears largely unconcerned that he will face the kind of political fallout that would discourage other leaders from similar money-making endeavors. Even before the release of his financial filing, polling showed disapproval among Americans when it came to Mr. Trump's handling of his family's businesses. One Pew Research Center survey from September found that more than 60% of Americans felt that Mr. Trump in his second term definitely or probably had improperly used the office of the presidency to enrich himself, friends, and his family. The same poll found that nearly two-thirds of Americans believed that Mr. Trump had not set a high moral standard for the presidency. Overall, Mr. Trump pulled in at least $2.2 billion during his first year back in office, a figure that includes other parts of his vast holdings, like real estate assets. That is compared with at least $622 million his enterprises brought in for all of 2024, before he returned to the White House, and it eclipses the revenue report by Mr. Trump's family businesses in 2020, the last full year of his first term, when it suffered steep declines as the pandemic upended the hospitality industry. In his first term, Mr. Trump's family business promised to not make foreign deals while Mr. Trump was in office. But in his return to the White House, Mr. Trump's sons have shifted the focus of the family business from domestic real estate to financial deals that monetize the Trump's name, renewing questions over conflicts of interest. Mr. Trump is also benefiting particularly from the cryptocurrency industry, even as his administration guts the primary regulator of the industry. This is an unprecedented level of conflict of interest and what appears to be some corruption, said Dylan Hedler Gaudet, acting Vice President of Policy and Government at the Project on Government Oversight, a nonpartisan government watchdog. He said Mr. Trump, in his second term, had appeared to fully internalize that he is exempt from civil and criminal conflict of interest laws that would otherwise require a senior federal official to sell holdings in companies that might benefit from his or her actions. It's just ethically audacious, he said. The White House has repeatedly dismissed questions of conflicts, maintaining that Mr. Trump's two older sons, Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr., run the business operations. Mr. Trump, too, brushed aside the news of his financial disclosure filings. I never speak to any of the people that run the money, Mr. Trump told reporters on Wednesday morning before boarding a luxury plane donated by Qatar, that now serves as Air Force One. You know why I'm profiting? Because the stock market is going up. In fact, Mr. Trump has declined to make use of a traditional ethical guardrail, putting his assets in a blind trust. That means that he could potentially know what stocks he owns and influence their performance with policy announcements or contracts, even if he cannot direct how or when they are traded. The stock market's movements also do not explain the bulk of his financial haul in 2025, including when an investment firm tied to the United Arab Emirates bought nearly half of the Trump family's main crypto company. That is an extraordinary conflict of interest unfolding in plain sight, said Gary Coleman, Executive Director of Transparency International US, an anti-corruption group. Mr. Trump's regrets over limiting his power in his first term have appeared to motivate other actions in his return to the White House. Mr. Trump has told advisors that his biggest regret from his first term was appointing Republican veterans who went on to criticize him after leaving his administration. He has now installed loyalists throughout the federal government. He has put election deniers in key positions in the administration as he continues to express grievances about the integrity of the 2020 election. He has pushed out independent watchdogs, amassed executive power, and shown little hesitation to push the limits in ways that were taboo in his first term. And Mr. Trump and his family in his second term have only doubled down when it comes to business ventures that are profiting from his administration's actions. Donald Trump Jr. has also expressed similar sentiment to his father, saying that his family got no credit for its restraint in Trump's first term. That includes legislation that Mr. Trump signed last July to promote a form of cryptocurrency called stablecoin, 4 months after his family-backed firm introduced its own stablecoin. With his two sons standing just feet behind him on Wednesday, Mr. Trump appeared unconcerned when asked about criticism that he was profiting from his presidency. "We're all profiting," Mr. Trump said as he once again spotlighted the stock market. "I'm profiting because I have a lot of money and a lot of cash, and I give it to institutions. I don't know if they know what they're doing or not, but they buy a vast array of things." You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the July 2nd issue of the New York Times on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Your reader today has been Mark Grier. Thank you so much for listening.